In the far reaches of the solar system, where silence ruled and frozen rocks drifted in endless night, a signal was caught by the hidden eyes of humanity's watchtowers. It was faint at first, nothing more than a flicker against the black. But then, it grew stronger and clearer until there was no doubt what it meant. The Armada had come. The Imperial Armada that the Galactic Council had sworn would erase Earth from existence was now moving across the void, like a storm that stretched from one horizon of space to the other. It was not a fleet for war. It was a fleet for annihilation. Thousands of ships' engines burning like suns, dreadnoughts larger than mountains, carriers vomiting endless streams of fighters, cruisers bristling with weapons. So heavy they could crack moons, their formation blotted out the stars, and even the most hardened human commanders felt the weight of its shadow. When the news reached Earth, silence fell across cities and colonies alike, in every home, in every dome. In every outpost, people stopped what they were doing and turned their eyes to the sky, as if they could already see the darkness moving closer. Billions understood in a single heartbeat that the greatest trial of their species had arrived, and there would be no second chance, no negotiation, only survival or extinction. In the war rooms of Earth, the leaders sat around steel tables, their faces hard, their voices steady, but beneath their calm lay the fire of desperation they had known this day would come since the Council had been humiliated at Titan. They had known the galaxy would not forgive humanity for refusing to kneel, yet even knowing had not prepared them for the scale of the storm now advancing toward their world. The Armada was beyond anything seen in centuries. Entire civilizations could be conquered by such force, and yet now all of it was aimed at a single planet, a single species that the galaxy had once thought weak. Spies and traitors had whispered of the Armada. For months, some had dismissed it as rumor, some as fear. But now the truth was undeniable. The reports confirmed it. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier the Council could gather had been thrown into this one strike. It was not about victory. It was about erasure. The Council did not want to frighten Earth. It wanted to destroy Earth completely, to burn the memory of humanity from the stars so that no other race would dare defy their rule again. As the Armada advanced, Earth prepared in silence. Factories burned brighter than ever. Shipyards thundered orbital defenses, hummed awake weapons long hidden beneath the oceans, and mountains stirred like beasts unchained. Commanders reviewed strategies not with hope of mercy, but with determination, to fight to the last. For they understood what the Council never could, that humans had always been at their strongest when they had nothing left to lose. In the shadows of space, the first scouts of the Armada appeared, sleek cruisers, gliding into the Kuiper Belt. Their orders: simple: test the defenses, crush. Resistance report: the weakness of Earth, but none returned hours later. Fragments of transmission leaked into the void. Static screams, flashes of rail fire, sudden silence. Then nothing when the Armada demanded answers. None came. The scouts were gone, swallowed whole by the black. Yet the Armada did not slow. It pressed onward, relentless, endless, unshaken by the loss of a few ships, because it was a beast too large to fear the death of. Pawns instead, it used the silence as proof that humans were desperate, hiding behind ambushes, waiting to be crushed. Soon the full weight of the Armada would fall on Saturn, then Jupiter, then Mars, and finally Earth itself, on the surface of Earth. People gathered in plazas and streets, staring at screens that broadcast the Council's message. A towering alien admiral appeared, cold and merciless, its words sharp as knives. It declared that this time there would be no trial, no banishment only. Fire, the voice echoed across every city, telling humanity that they had risen too far, that they had challenged powers older than stars, and for that they would be wiped away. The speech ended with words carved into every heart. This time, Earth will not rise this time. Earth will burn. The broadcast cut to black. But the silence that followed did not carry fear. It carried something else, something colder across the planet. People clenched their fists and raised their heads. The storm was coming, and every soul knew the truth. Humanity was outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched, but not broken, never broken. And in the shadows of the approaching Armada, the seeds of defiance grew sharper than steel across Earth, and its scattered colonies. Silence lingered after the Council's threat, but it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of preparation in the vast shipyards above Mars. Steel frames glowed red as they were welded into warships, while on the frozen plains of Titan drilling, rigs had already been converted into artillery platforms and orbital cannons that could tear the void itself. Factories thundered in endless rhythm forges, burned night and day, and every street echoed with the roar of engines as humanity bent its entire weight toward one purpose: survival. No one needed to be told what was at stake. Children who had once played in the domes of colonies now carried supplies to barracks, while their parents took shifts in factories or trained in the ranks of soldiers. Every man and woman understood that if they did not fight, they would vanish forever. And so none complained, none hesitated, because the shadow of the Armada left no room for weakness. In deep underground vaults, scientists unveiled weapons that had been kept hidden for years, weapons too dangerous to reveal before, but now they were all that stood between Earth and extinction. Vast rail platforms, anchored in mountains capable of hurling projectiles across light seconds of space swarms, of AI-guided drones that moved in perfect silence, stealth corvettes painted black to vanish against the void engines designed to burn faster than Council sensors could track. Each invention born not from luxury, but from desperation. The Empire had been preparing since exile, and now it revealed its teeth in full. Above Earth, fleets assembled dark steel hulls stretching across orbit, their formations sharp and disciplined. Unlike the polished elegance of the Council ships, these were war. Machines forged from fire and hunger and scars. Their captains, veterans of battles, fought in silence. Their crews hardened by endless drills where failure meant death. Pilots climbed into cockpits knowing they might never return. Yet their eyes did not falter, because for them, this was more than war. It was survival of their species. The Council had expected panic, but what rose instead was unity. Earth had always been divided by nations and borders, but not anymore. Exile had forced them together, and now annihilation had forged them into one voice. One empire of steel commanders spoke not of glory, but of endurance. Leaders reminded their people that humans had faced storms and famine and fire since the beginning of their history. And this, Armada, was nothing more than the greatest storm yet. When the first wave of the Armada's scouts reached the Kuiper Belt, humanity's preparations were tested. The alien ships swept forward, confident their size alone would shatter resistance. But as they crossed into the belt, silence swallowed them. Rail cannons hidden inside frozen asteroids roared awake slugs of tungsten, screamed through the dark, tearing ships in half before their shields could flare. Drones swarmed from hidden caverns, striking engines, weapons, guidance systems. The scouts tried to fight, but every maneuver had been predicted. Every escape cut off when the battle ended. Nothing remained but fragments of wreckage tumbling through the black. The galaxy would later whisper of that moment, because when the Armada called for reports, none came, and when they searched for survivors, none were found. The scouts had been erased in minutes, and though the Council claimed it meant nothing, the silence that followed told another truth. The humans were waiting. The humans were ready. On Earth, the people heard of the victory, but they did not celebrate. They knew it was only the beginning, because the scouts were not the storm. They were only the edge of the storm. Billions looked up at the skies, not with relief, but with resolve. Factories burned hotter, soldiers sharpened their weapons, families sent their sons and daughters into the ranks, knowing they might never see them again, for all of humanity. Understood that soon the full weight of the Armada would arrive, and when it did, there would be no place to run, no place to hide, only the test of fire, and in the silence of the void, the Armada continued to advance, relentless, endless, unstoppable, its engines burning like suns across the horizon of space, pressing closer with every hour toward Saturn, toward Jupiter, toward Earth itself. And though humanity had struck the first blow, they knew the greatest battle was still waiting to be written. The storm came first to Saturn, where the great rings of ice and stone shimmered like a shield against the void. But no beauty could hide the shadow of the Armada. When it arrived, the darkness spread across the system like an eclipse, thousands of ships drifting in perfect formation, dreadnoughts the size of cities, their hulls bristling with weapons carriers unleashing endless swarms of fighters, their engines burning so bright that the icy moons glowed as though touched by fire. The Council did not waste words this time. No threats, no demands, only action. The Armada had come to break Earth's defenses and erase its defiance in a single blow. Hidden deep within the shadows of Titan, humanity waited. The planet's surface crawled with weapons rail cannons disguised as mining rigs, heavy missile platforms buried beneath frozen plains, and swarms of drones sleeping beneath the methane seas. The Council believed humans would attempt to defend Saturn directly with fleets. But instead, Earth's commanders had chosen a different path. They would fight like predators, not prey striking from shadows, then vanishing into the black. And when the Armada crossed into Titan's orbit, the trap was sprung. The first sign was silence. The alien fleets detected no human warships, no defenses, nothing but the endless cold of Saturn's moons. And so they advanced, believing victory would be swift. But then the void lit with fire rail cannons hidden in the rings, unleashed storms of tungsten that shredded through the lead ships. Shields shattered hulls, cracked open in blinding arcs of light. Drones erupted from Titan's surface like swarms of hornets, their engines dark, their weapons precise, tearing through the Armada's fighter wings. Before they could respond, the aliens reeled, caught off guard, but the humans did not pause. They struck again and again, always vanishing into the shadow before counterfire could land. Admirals of the Armada roared orders, their voices echoing across. Channels commanding cruisers to spread and hunt the hidden weapons carriers unleashed squadrons by the thousands. Fighters filled the sky like locusts burning toward Titan in waves. But humanity had prepared for this. Every valley, every ridge of the moon had been turned into a fortress. Turrets rose from the ground and lit the sky with rail fire. Missile silos cracked open like jaws and spat storms of fire. Titan became a world of thunder and flame, drowning the alien advance. The Armada was vast, and for every ship destroyed, 2 more pressed forward, their weapons carving Titan's surface open with burning lances. Entire installations turned to ash under bombardment, but humanity refused to break soldiers in steel armor, fought. Across the moon's surface, meeting alien troops in brutal close combat corridors of outposts filled with screams and fire. Yet not a single line gave way. Every fall only hardened the resistance further, because every soldier knew the truth. There was no retreat, nowhere to run. They stood on the edge of extinction, and they would not step back. Hours bled into day, the battle raging across space and surface alike, human fleets hidden in the black, struck with precision, then vanished, while the Armada bled resources faster than it expected for the first time in centuries. The Council's admirals felt doubt they had come to crush. But instead, they were being dragged into a war of endurance, a war humanity had prepared for with every ounce of strength since banishment. And though the Armada burned Titan, though the moon shook and screamed, humanity refused to be erased. At last, the order came. The Armada shifted its full power upon Titan. Their dreadnoughts moved into close orbit. There, Cannons unleashed storms of light that cracked the moon's crust apart. Oceans of methane ignited into towers of fire. Human weapons fell silent one by one. Rail cannons shattered missile silos, melted drones cut down by endless swarms. Titan was burning, and the humans knew they could not hold it forever. But the sacrifice had been made for every installation destroyed. A dozen alien ships had been shattered for every fortress. Lost a piece of the Armada had been bled away. Titan had become humanity's shield, and though it was broken, it had bought time. As the surviving human fleets retreated deeper into the shadows of the system, the Armada claimed Titan, raising its flag above the burning moon, declaring victory across the stars. But behind the roar of triumph there lingered unease, for in the wreckage of Saturn, hundreds of their ships floated broken, thousands of their soldiers lay dead and across the galaxy. Whispers began to rise. If this was the price of taking one moon, what would the price of reaching Earth itself be? Beyond the ruins of Titan, the Armada pressed forward, relentless as a tide that could not be turned, its engines burning like suns as it carved a path toward Jupiter, a world of storms and lightning that now bristled with humanity's last great defenses. Unlike Titan, which had been a fortress of ambushes and hidden traps, Jupiter had been forged into a citadel. Whole moons had been converted into bastions. Europa's ice cracked with rail batteries that could fire across millions of kilometers. Ganymede was wrapped in armored stations like rings of steel. Callisto was turned into a labyrinth of missile silos and defense grids, and above the gas giant itself floated the crown of human defiance, the Sky Bastion. A colossal station forged from dozens of shipyards combined into one body, a floating city of fire and steel, its guns longer than skyscrapers, its shields glowing like storms. It was humanity's heart in the outer system, and it was here they would make their stand. The Armada came in endless waves, dreadnoughts pushing through the void carriers, spitting rivers of fighters, their formations flawless, their confidence unshaken. They had broken empires before they had crushed rebellions. They had burned worlds until their ashes drifted across the stars, and they believed Earth would be no different yet. When they drew near Jupiter's orbit, the void itself seemed to rise against them. Rail slugs screamed from Europa, tearing dreadnoughts apart before they could even form ranks. Missile storms erupted from Callisto, burning through fighter wings in swaths. Drones surged from hidden cradles on Ganymede, cutting through alien corvettes with cold precision. Then the Sky Bastion awoke, its cannons roared in unison, and light filled the heavens, tearing through ships like thunder splitting mountains. The Armada reeled its shields, flaring its admirals, barking orders, fleets scattering into counter-formations. The void became chaos, lines of fire crossing in every direction, explosions painting storms across the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling clouds. Human warships surged from behind their fortresses, striking with sharp precision, destroyers slipping through gaps in formation, unleashing volleys before vanishing again. Stealth frigates painted black, sliding beneath the cover of rail fire before detonating mines against the hulls of carriers. Every movement calculated, every strike purposeful, because humanity knew they could not match the Armada in numbers, but they could bleed it in skill. Alien fighters swarmed in rivers, striking against Europa's ice, and Callisto's bunkers waves of fire, turning fortresses into glowing scars. Soldiers on the moons fought in desperate defense lines, holding corridors with rifles and steel blades. When plasma fire tore apart their walls, every soldier fought, knowing there would be no retreat for them, only the stand for Earth above them. The Sky Bastion shuddered as Armada dreadnoughts turned their full guns upon it. Its shields flared, cracking under the endless assault. Yet every time it dimmed, the station answered with thunder, tearing through the enemy ranks in defiance, as if daring the galaxy to try and erase it. Hours turned into days, battles raging across orbit and surface alike, fleets burning against fleets, moons trembling under the weight of bombardment, for the Armada was unrelenting, their numbers stretching beyond sight. And though humanity's defenses held their cost grew heavier with every breath, Europa's cannons fell silent one by one. Callisto's silos were gutted in storms of plasma. Ganymede's drone swarms dwindled as production hubs were cracked open, and the Sky Bastion itself began to falter, whole sections torn open by burning lances, atmosphere venting into the void, crews fighting even as their station crumbled around them. Still, they refused surrender. Still, they fought. At last, the Armada's dreadnoughts pierced the inner defense, grid their cannons, turning upon the Sky Bastion with fire so vast it drowned Jupiter's storms for a moment. The great fortress of Earth split apart in silence, its light fading into fragments, drifting in the void, a symbol of defiance. Shattered before the galaxy to see humanity had lost Jupiter's shield, and the Armada claimed another victory yet. Like Titan, it had not come without cost. Thousands of their ships burned in the void, their fleets torn and scarred their resources, bleeding faster than their commanders admitted, and though they raised their banners above the wreckage, they did so with unease because this was no easy war. This was no swift conquest. From Earth, the survivors of Jupiter's defense limped back, scarred ships docking with silent pride, their crews carrying stories of sacrifice and fire, stories that spread across every colony and every city, fueling not despair but fury. For though the Sky Bastion was gone and the moons of Jupiter were burning, the people of Earth did not bow. They sharpened their resolve, they built more ships, they forged more weapons, they swore vengeance in steel and silence because they knew the Armada would come next for the heart of the system. And when it did, humanity would meet it not as prey but as predators with nothing left to lose. The fall of Jupiter shook the system like a wound that would not heal the Sky Bastion's shattered frame, drifted in silence, a tomb of fire and steel orbiting in ruins, as the Armada pressed onward, yet even as alien banners flew above the burning. Moon's Earth was not broken far from the Council's gaze, deep in the dark, between Mars and the asteroid belt. Humanity's greatest secret stirred for decades. Engineers, soldiers, and visionaries had worked in silence to forge something beyond warships. Beyond fortresses, they had built the Iron Phalanx, a fleet not of defense, but of vengeance. The Phalanx was unlike anything the galaxy had seen, forged from hollowed asteroids and armored with alloys stripped from the bones of dead stars. These ships were enormous juggernauts bristling with weapons rail cannons longer than towers, plasma lances that could split dreadnoughts apart. Their hulls were layered in reactive plating designed to absorb and twist incoming fire, their cores powered by reactors built from the remnants of Earth's earliest experiments with black hole physics. Each ship carried within it not just guns, but a legion of soldiers ready to board and fight on alien decks if the chance arose. And at their heart was the flagship, the Steel Sovereign. A vessel so vast it dwarfed even the Armada's mightiest dreadnoughts, its prow carved with the symbol of Earth, a reminder to all who saw it that humanity was no longer in hiding. When news of Jupiter's fall reached the fleet, the Phalanx did not mourn. They sharpened their resolve, commanders standing before their soldiers with fire in their eyes, telling them that this was not the end, but the beginning. Earth was no longer defending, it was hunting, and as the Armada advanced past the asteroid belt, believing the humans broken, the Iron Phalanx moved in silence to strike. The trap began with whispers, small fleets of drones painted black, moving ahead of the Armada, scattering in the void like dust, their signals faint, their heat signatures near invisible. They mapped every path, every weak point in the alien formation. Then came the first blow-rail slugs, the size of shuttles, screaming through the dark, tearing apart carriers before their captains even knew they were targeted. Silence followed, then fire as mines hidden in drifting rock fields, ignited detonations tearing holes in their perfect lines before the Armada could shift the void. Itself seemed to roar as the Phalanx emerged. The steel Sovereign led the charge, its cannons thundering in unison, sending waves of destruction across the alien vanguard flanked by titans forged from rock and steel. The phalanx surged like wolves among prey, not scattered, not fleeing, but advancing with precision. Every ship targeting a weakness, every volley coordinated across the fleet. Alien dreadnoughts reeled their shields, collapsing under weapons they had never seen before. Plasma that bent around their defenses, railfire that drilled through. Their cores in seconds, the Armada's admirals screamed commands to regroup, to turn, to crush. But the void had turned against them. Human ships darted in and out of the battle stealth frigates, cutting through formations, corvettes dragging alien. Fire into ambush zones where titans waited with hidden batteries. And when the Armada tried to bring its numbers to bear, they found themselves fighting not prey, but predators. Earth had studied them. Earth had learned their tactics. Earth had built weapons not to match them, but to break them. Boarding pods slammed into alien hulls. Human soldiers in black steel poured into corridors, fighting with blades and rifles through the guts of ships that had once been symbols of the Council's dominance. Alien crews' panicked corridors turned into slaughterhouses where discipline collapsed before human fury. The Council had believed fear was a weakness of humans, but here fear had been carved into something else, something sharper: soldiers who fought. With the fire of extinction in their hearts, soldiers who refused to yield even in death. For the first time in centuries, the Armada faltered its formation. Broken, its admirals silenced by the chaos, bleeding ships filling the void with wreckage. The battle stretched for hours, then a day, the Steel Sovereign carving a path through the center of the alien fleet, like a blade of fire. And when at last the Armada pulled back, limping, scarred across the void, the system was left littered with their dead, their ships cracked and burning. The phalanx had risen, and the galaxy would never forget its first strike. But victory came at a cost. Human ships, too, lay broken. Soldiers, too, lay silent in the cold drift of the void. And every commander knew this war was far from over. The Armada had been wounded, not destroyed, and its vengeance would be terrible. Yet, in the silence that followed, the survivors did not bow their heads. They raised their voices across the comms, swearing oaths in steel and blood. Because for the first time since their banishment, Earth had shown the galaxy that it could not only endure, it could fight, it could rise, and in that rising, it could make even the Armada bleed. The void between Mars and Earth had never felt so heavy. The wreckage of the Armada and the iron phalanx drifted like monuments to fire and steel. Thousands of ships burned, millions of lives lost. Yet the war was far from over, because the Armada, though scarred, still advanced its commanders. Enraged by the humiliation of defeat, vowing to scour Earth from existence, once and for all, fleets poured through the dark, their banners blazing. Their dreadnoughts reforged in vengeance. They were not retreating, they were regrouping, and their course was set for Earth itself, the cradle of humanity, the world they had sworn to erase. On Earth, the cities stirred like beating hearts beneath the shadow of inevitability. Factories roared day and night, spitting out war machines faster than ever before. Orbital docks shone like suns as ship after ship rose into the skies. The Steel Sovereign, though wounded, was reforged, its hull plated anew. Its cannons rearmed, its symbol of Earth carved deeper than before. The survivors of Jupiter and the Phalanx stood among its decks. Scarred veterans turned into legends. Whispers spread through the colonies that humanity had done the impossible. It had bled the Armada, and now every man, woman, and child understood there was no path left but victory or extinction. As the Armada entered the inner system, their fleet spread across the void in walls of steel, thousands upon thousands of ships arrayed in perfect formation, their weapons glowing like stars. Earth had never faced such a force, the skies of the homeworld Filled with fear, people gathered in cities looking upward, knowing that every breath might be their last. Yet their fear was not silent. It was sharpened into resolve, militias prepared in every nation. Defense grids bristled across continents, orbital. Cannons rose from hidden bunkers. Fleets of drones poured into the skies like swarms of fireflies. Humanity had never been so united, never been so desperate, never been so dangerous. Then the Armada arrived, and the heavens themselves broke rail fire. Streaked from orbital platforms, tearing into the vanguard, swarms of missiles rose from Earth's surface like storms, splitting carriers apart in showers of flame. Yet the Armada answered with fury, plasma lances cut through the defense grid, burning. Orbital stations in seconds, dreadnoughts unleashed torrents that shattered cities in thunderous silence. The war was no longer distant. It was at Earth's doorstep. Skies over oceans lit with fire, continents shook with shock waves. People fled into bunkers, while soldiers stood their ground, and above them the phalanx charged into the storm. The Steel Sovereign struck first, its cannons blazing so bright they carved shadows across Earth's surface. Its escorts surged behind it, weaving between alien lines, cutting apart formations with practiced precision. Once more, humanity's fleet moved like predators, striking at the throat of the Armada, targeting command ships, crippling carriers, boarding vessels in waves of steel. But this time, the Armada did not break so easily. Their admirals forced their ships forward, their numbers unending. They surrounded the phalanx, drowning them in fire explosions blossomed across the void. Human ships cracked apart. Soldiers fought and died screaming. Into the dark, the Armada believed they could smother the flame by sheer weight. But humanity had prepared for this final moment, hidden deep within the Earth. Defense Network was the last gamble. The Black Sun Project, a weapon born in shadows, feared. Even by its creators, a reactor built not to power ships, but to devour them. A singularity harnessed and chained, waiting to be unleashed as the Steel Sovereign was driven back, its hull torn open, its decks burning. The signal was given, and from the heart of Earth, the Black Sun awoke, space itself trembled. A ripple spreading across the battlefield, pulling matter, light, and fire into its growing hunger. The Armada panicked their formations, collapsing as ships were dragged toward the abyss. Dreadnoughts screamed in silence as they cracked apart, their fleets thrown into chaos. Humanity's own ships fought to escape the pull, their captains cutting engines to minimum their hulls, groaning under the strain. The Steel Sovereign burned its reactors, beyond limit, forcing itself free while alien fleets were consumed whole. The void became a storm of collapsing light and twisted steel, until at last silence returned, leaving only drifting wreckage and a scar in space where the Armada once stood. When the fires dimmed, Earth still remained scarred, battered, but alive, its cities wounded, but unbroken, its people shaken, but unyielding. The Armada had not been destroyed entirely. Remnants fled into the dark, swearing vengeance, but their pride had been shattered, their invincibility broken by the world they had sought to erase across the galaxy whispers.